This episode of the Leadership Speak series, I chat with Mr. Sachin Pilot, one of India's most influential political leaders and an inspiring youth icon. Mr. Pilot is an MLA of Rajasthan. Before this, he was Minister of Corporate Affairs, and at present, he is the President of Rajasthan State Congress Committee. Wharton educated, Mr. Sachin Pilot did not plan to be a politician, but has ended up being one of India's most well-known and admired political leaders of today. Still in his early 40s, Mr. Sachin Pilot is an inspirational youth icon who leads by example and is showing us youngsters how we must all be involved in the policy making process, even though we might not choose to be career politicians ourselves. Let's hear Mr. Sachin Pilot's unique perspective on leadership in the 16th episode of Leadership Speaks.
पेट्रोल, डीजल, गैस सिलेंडर, खाने की सामग्री, फल, फूल, उसकी कीमत आसमान छू रही है। उसके जिम्मेदार आप लोग हो और आप लोगों को मजबूर होकर जैसे आपने तीनों कृषि कानून वापस लिए थे, उसी तरह आज की रैली को देखकर केंद्र की सरकार को सर झुकाना पड़ेगा और कीमतों में कमी लानी पड़ेगी। और मैं चाहता हूं कि आप सब लोग दोनों हाथ खड़े कर बताइए कि देश की सरकार बदलने के लिए तैयार है और वो शुरुआत जयपुर से होगी। मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि आप सब अच्छी तादाद में आए। आपका स्नेह, आशीर्वाद और प्यार हमेशा बना रहे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
So before starting, thank you so much for joining me, and it's an absolute honor. So my first question for you is, at times do your personal ideologies differ from your political ideologies, and how do you handle that difference in those different ideologies?
I think a large part of what I believe in fundamentally in terms of our societal values, about political leanings and the way I think we should operate as a country, it's more or less aligned with the party that I'm with, and I think that's the reason why I'm in the party. So there's not a huge mismatch on what I personally believe and what the party does. Of course, there are different opinions within the party, and we have to come to consensus and then move forward. But I think most people who are in different political parties tend to think like the core ideology of that party, and that's why you can function with ease, and there are no sort of counter forces playing. So I don't really think that personal ideology, if they were so different, then one would not be in the party. So there is a broad co-alignment in the way the party generally thinks and how the individual who is in the party thinks.
Right, definitely. I think that gives us a great insight into a little bit of you and how your thinking is. So my next question is, having received your MBA from Wharton, why did you major in business instead of a subject like political science or something related to politics, given your profession today?
Right. So I hadn't planned to become a politician, so therefore I didn't think I required any training in it at all, especially in my curriculum and my courses that I chose. I studied what I thought and felt was interesting, and I was looking at doing things in that sector. That's why I pursued that career. Politics for me happened much later and quite suddenly. So it wasn't something that I was planning on for years together. So there wasn't a thought in my head which said to me that I must do political science or study something that may help me. And frankly speaking, any education will help you. I think it's important to have a good education. It doesn't matter what your training is. It helps you to think differently. And I think educated people are able to assess things, understand the landscape much better. And in politics, when I'm involved in policy making, you have a broader horizon under which you can operate. So whether you become a lawyer, a doctor, or a master's in management, it doesn't really matter. So when my father was in politics, I was doing my studies and never thought of becoming a politician. But after I graduated, and I lost my father obviously, as you know. So then I thought I can do something different on a much larger platform, and then I consciously chose to become a politician. So my education holds me in good stead. I think it's good to have a good degree, a good educational background. It helps you to see things differently. It helps you to understand, especially some of the economic policy making agendas that sometimes are difficult to grasp. So I get a lot of help from my education and my degree that I've got.
Talking about your degree and your education, you've also been highly educated in undergrad from St. Stephen's. Has this helped you in leading a state or however you lead in your profession? And can you draw any parallels between your profession right now and the leadership in that and starting a business or being an entrepreneur?
No, I think, like I said to you earlier in my earlier response, it's important to get a good education. It doesn't have to be in the top college or the top Ivy League management institute. As long as you study well, you get good grades, and you are a qualified individual, it also gives you some leverage in terms of gaining people's respect. If you're talking to a policymaker and he or she is not that well educated or doesn't grasp the fundamentals of what you're talking about, then you have less faith in the decision that person might make. So as an electorate, as a voter, I would feel much more confident if the people making those decisions for me, whether it's policy, economic policy, whether it's my taxation, whether it's foreign policy, whatever decision the government or people involved in the government make, you feel a lot more comfortable knowing that the person making those decisions has actually had a well-rounded education. He or she's had the experience. So I've been very fortunate that I was able to go to a good college and a good master's program. But that doesn't mean that if you don't have a master's degree, you can't be a good politician. Ultimately, the electorate and the people have to have faith in what you do, and you have to inculcate that feeling of belonging. If your voters don't connect with you, no matter how many degrees you've got, you won't be able to be a successful politician. So you have to write both boats, where you have to have a mass-based understanding, and people must relate to you as a leader, as an elected representative. And then in the executive branch of working in political life, it's always better to have a good education. And like I said, it doesn't have to be specifically in any particular line, but just a good learning, a good background of a good institution or a good education will hold you in good stead.
Right, definitely. I totally agree with you that you don't need that amazing of a degree, or you don't have to be from an Ivy League to get respect. And education is something that stays with you forever. So my next question is, as a young, influential leader, you must have met other international political heads and decision makers who have had an impact on you. If you have, please name a few and how they impacted you.
I mean, I've been very lucky that I've met people from across the country here in India, but also people from across the globe. And my travels when I was in Parliament or when I was in government, you get a lot of chance to meet a lot of other people across section. So I don't know if I want to take any names, but generally I think it's also the other way around. When we talk about the largest democracy, a fully functional democratic setup that we have in India, which we're also proud of. So when people meet you from other countries, they in fact take inspiration from people like in India who are in public life, because our elections are very, very tedious and cumbersome exercise, and very large constituency that you have to be accountable for. So I used to get questions from my counterparts in Europe or US or Asia of how we manage being elected. Like in the US, you don't have to be elected representative to be a secretary of state or secretary of whatever department. So you can be a technocrat or bureaucrat and not in the Congress or in the Senate. In India, you have to be a member of parliament. You have to be elected to a house, and then you can become a member of the executive. So I've met a lot of people, and I think the same change I've seen across globally is also happening in India, where a lot of younger people are taking on leadership roles, right from the panchayats to municipal corporations to district level appointments to states and national parliament. So you see a lot of young people in European countries, a lot of young people in the US. And I think last 10-15 years, you've seen a dramatic change in the age profile of people in Indian politics who've taken on the challenge to contest elections, both men and women. So that's a good change that we've seen the landscape shifting from the pretty aged and older generation to a lot younger. So I think it's a good welcome change. I think it argues very well for our democracy.
Definitely. And one question I really wanted to ask was, how would you guide young kids to navigate corruption in this country? It's simple to say no and even simpler to say yes. And there is definitely no middle path. So that's something I really wanted to know.
Yeah, I think it's an issue not just in India, but many countries. And
right.
I think corruption, of course, you need strong laws, you need quick action, and you need people with commitment to take on leadership roles. But it's also a matter of societal values. Right? So if it becomes the norm, becomes acceptable at every level, then it stops irritating people. It stops becoming a taboo. So I think young people, understand and they're very conscious of the moral responsibility they have. So cutting corners, and corruption is not just about making extra money or doing undue favors. It's also about having some ethics. So whether it's your studies, whether it's your dealing with other individuals and colleagues, whether you're playing a sport, it's just a cultural, institutionalized ethic that one has to create a foundation on. And I think younger people, when the kind of um, interactions, experiences they have at home and school and elsewhere, they develop a mindset. And if you're steadfast upon that righteous path, then it becomes much easier to veer away from what the other corrupt option can be. It's very easy to say, but it has to be a change that has to be done within society, within homes and households and residential areas and schools, institutions and colleges. And of course, politics is also part of our society. So if the change and the cleansing happens from the society's point of view, it'll automatically throw up, nicer, not nicer, but
Right.
less corrupt or educated individuals who become politicians. But young people, I think, are much more conscious of having a strong, corrupt-free India, because it will actually start decaying us from within. And I don't know how much longer we can hold that off. So one has to have a zero tolerance, and one has to lead from the front and also lead by example.
Totally. I think corruption is such a big issue that there has to be it has to be put to an end some way or the other. So we definitely have to stay in the rigid rules and make sure everybody is following the rules and laws. So one of my last questions for you is, if you are an avid reader, what is your favorite book and one you would recommend to my age group?
The thing is, I'm not an avid reader. I don't get much time to read books at all, to be honest with you. But I do prefer reading non-fiction, historical, or something that tells me more about different cultures, different histories. I don't read that many books, so I'm not going to sit and recommend any books. But I do know that people who read are better conversationalists, are better people who understand concepts. So it's a good habit to have. I unfortunately don't have such a strong habit of book reading, but it's something that young people, I would encourage a lot of people, especially from your age group, go out and read books. I'm not saying don't watch movies, but I'm saying reading books also helps you to develop a character and personality.
Definitely, and maybe not books, but maybe a hobby that has helped you in your professional and personal life. Maybe one hobby you have.
Yeah, so I mean, I think all of you are very competitive, at this age group, and you all play sports, and there's so much more avenues to excel and show your talent. When I was growing up, we didn't have that many, things to do, but I as a person, generally, I like to travel, and I travel. I don't travel with my blinkers on. I try and see what's going on, and I love interacting with people who are different from us in terms of their lifestyle, their customs, their clothes, their languages, and I think you learn a lot from people who are not like you.
Right.
And we tend to remain in a comfort zone, right? It makes us more comfortable. We feel that we can connect, but we should try and reach out. And I've been lucky that I've been able to travel within the country quite a lot and also overseas. So one of the good things that I like to do is to experience different cultures, to understand what drives them and what we can learn from them, and perhaps to have some exchange of ideas. That's something I always love to do. And with my job, I get to do a lot of that. So that's something that I think, and also India is such a diverse country.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you and all your friends to really step out of your schools and now getting to that age where you can travel and just experiencing things on your own, as opposed to being told or to do in a group. It really does open up, and you see the world as it is. And that, I think, is something that I've enjoyed to do. Other than that, in my work, really, it's. I don't think any recreational hobby has helped me in my work. It's a rigorous work. It seems very easy from the outside, but being an active politician, it is challenging. You have to manage your time. You don't get that much time with your friends and family. You're always committed, and it's a 24/7. So it's not easy. But if you're able to take small breaks, and if you're able to manage your time effectively, then you end up becoming a better politician, better management with your time and resources. But I think just in the end, I would like to say that it should not be that being a politician or being in politics is the only option. You can be involved in the policy making. You can ask questions, make people accountable. Governments, representatives, the bureaucracy, educated, aware citizens can do that, and that's so important for a democracy to function. Because if we let things ki ye to chalta hai, ye to aise hi hai, there's nothing we can do, that attitude, I think, is not helpful. But I'm so happy that younger people of your generation are so aware, so active, and are taking the initiative. Because this is our country, this is our society. Nobody from the outside will come and help us out, right? We can keep aspiring to be different, but we have to change from within. And it'll have to be us. Nobody owes us anything. So we'll have to do it from within, do it from the inside. And the direction the country takes largely depends on the quality of politicians we have. So which way will it be, what direction will it take, how we will be in next 5, 10, 20 years depends on the quality and the character of politicians our society throws up. So our schools, our colleges, universities are the same for everybody. Some of us become politicians, some don't. But we have to, I think, have a fertile ground for good, upstanding, honest, transparent people with convictions and principles to take on leadership roles. That, I think, is the way forward for us. And I'm very, very optimistic and hopeful that we are in the right direction.
Definitely. I think that kind of answers my last question as well, which was what advice would you give to the younger generation to enable them to look at joining politics to make a positive change for the good of our country? So if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so I think everybody can't be a politician, and maybe they should be, but it doesn't mean that you remove yourself from public life, right? You can still be involved as a citizen. Like I said, cast your vote, be aware of what's happening at the local level, at the state level, the national level. Your participation, your questioning, your accountability, your oversight, all of that helps, and you have to strike a fine balance with that. Maybe some people are involved in helping, thinking things through, helping policy making, and we all help in different ways. As long as we do our job as a good citizen, we are able to conduct ourselves with honesty and integrity. I think that itself is a large contribution. And India is such a large country, I think. But I do really hope that many more young people will take on this challenge. Like I said, it's not an easy job. It seems very easy from the outside, but like every other job, unless you put your heart and soul into it, you won't succeed. And you will never succeed in something that you don't like. So you have to first like what you do. You have to work really hard and devote and dedicate yourself. And then it's also not guaranteed that you will succeed. So you have to be mindful of that. That's why it's very challenging. That's why not very many people try and enter it. Also, there is a mental block that you have to be a certain type of person. You have to be somebody from some household, or you have to have a certain skill sets to become a politician. But all that is changing slowly. Like I said to you earlier in our conversation, I've seen people who are sarpanches, pradhans, councillors, mayors, who are 24, 25, 26 years of age, and who left their well-paying jobs and take on these roles. So I think it's a good positive indication in which our country is headed.
Definitely. I will definitely keep that in mind going forward. Thank you so much, and that ends it.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
That concludes my chat with Mr. Sachin Pilot, one of India's most influential political leaders and an inspiring youth icon. Here are two of my key takeaways from our chat. First, Ivy League education cannot guarantee success in powerful careers like politics. People must respect you and relate to you as a leader. Education helps us gain the respect of our colleagues. People feel a lot more comfortable knowing that a leader who makes important decisions has a good education experience. But education cannot guarantee success. People's skills, relatability, personality play bigger roles, especially in top leadership posts. Secondly, you may never succeed in something you don't like. You have to first like it and then work really hard at it. When choosing careers, especially challenging ones like politics, it is important that it suits our mindset and interest. Leadership in any field is a 24/7 job, and you may not get any personal time with friends and family. Even hard work is no guarantee for success. So in times of hardship, our interest in that field can see us through those hurdles. Talking to Mr. Sachin Pilot has been an amazing experience. His story has so much to teach us, not only about politics, but also about how us youngsters in different careers, we can still involve ourselves in building our democracy and nation. This is the 16th inspiring interview with the most influential leaders of India. If you enjoyed watching, please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll be releasing my next Leadership Speaks podcast very soon. Till then, think positive, have big goals, and focus on the road ahead.